Hello, and welcome to our Summer Reading Tales and Tales Buddy Making video series from the Public Library of Brookline. My name is Robin, and I'm a teen librarian at the Brookline Village Library. I'm here today to show you how to make horns with a button and some air dry clay. The Buddy Making Challenge is a part of this year's summer reading program at the Public Library of Brookline. If you haven't already, you can register for our summer reading program at brklib.com/beanstack. To find out more information about our entire summer reading program, visit brklib.com/summer21. Let's get started. For this task, you're going to need your toggle button, which is the small white button included, and your air dry clay, which will be in different colors. And you may need a pin just to help you make some holes in the clay. You may also need some paper and some scissors. And the main thing to remember about this project is you want to keep the holes open so that you'll be able to attach the horns to your buddy. So first off, you want to find a way to block up the holes inside the button so that they don't get filled with clay. And in this case, I just took some paper and rolled it up so that it was filled up the hole and was thick enough so that it would stay in that center hole. And then I just did that with both of them to make sure that it was fully blocked and so that I could wrap the clay around the button without worrying about it getting stuck in the holes and causing problems later. Now first I'm going to show you how to make a very basic set of horns. And so you just take a small piece of the air dry clay and make a little strip out of it and place it in between those two strips of paper that you've rolled up to cover up that middle portion of the button. And this layer does not need to be that thick. It can be actually pretty thin, and you'll be able to flatten it down however you like as you keep working. If you have a little excess, you can just pull it off, or you can add it to the rest of the button. But first I like to just get that center part covered. If you need to flatten down the inside bits of the clay, you can always use the edge of a pair of scissors or a pencil just to flatten it down. Then you just want to keep adding a thin layer of clay all over the button to give you a strong base. And the button is there to make it both easy for you to attach and make sure you have a strong piece at the core of your horns so they won't be as easy to hurt or damage. Once you've got it covered, so you get 2 equal parts of clay, and just shape the horns on each side however you'd like to have them look. In this case, they're pretty simple. The one thing to remember is that you want the holes to be kind of flat. You want to be able to sew through them in order to attach the button, so you can think about how you'd like to attach it. And then you just want to make sure that you've got the horns looking the way you want. And as you can see, I used the scissors to flatten down that inside part of the clay. And you just keep adjusting until the horns look exactly like you'd like. And for this next pair of horns, I thought I'd try something a little bit more like buffalo horns, like this fellow here. And they're a little curvier and they have a little bit of a top to them. So we're going to do that same process of filling in that center bit with a little strip of the clay. And this just helps them cover up that bit so you don't have to worry about it. And once again, using the scissors to flatten it down a little bit so that it stays relatively consistent. And then I'm just wrapping the clay around the button again to make sure. And in this case, I want these horns to be a little longer, so I'm going to add a bigger portion of clay to that side. And then I want to curl them around so that I've got a nice curl to the horns. And you can make this as tight or as loose as you want. The clay will dry, but the closer they are, they might be a little more stable. So that's why I've made mine a little bit closer, but they still got that nice curve to them. And then you just want to adjust them to make sure they're curved the way you want, that they match as much as you'd like them to. And then in this case, I decided also to see if I could add a little bit to the top to make those kind of bumps that are in the middle of the head of the buffalo. And that just takes a little bit of extra work of adding a little more clay and smoothing it down. And of course, with all of this, you can get as creative as you want, so you can do whatever you'd like. But now we've got a nice little pair of buffalo horns that would be a great addition to any buddy. And then of course I just wanted to point out you don't have to use the button, you can just use the clay and make any kind of horn you might like. In this case I decided to make some similar to the curly horns, but instead make them of 2 pieces of clay that had that nice kind of narwhal looking horn, or almost like a unicorn horn. And I just wrapped them up in the clay as it was. I didn't worry about using the button. And I kind of poked the little tops to make sure that they would fit. Then I used that pin and stuck a hole through the center. And I'm going to leave the pin in there so that the hole will remain while it dries. You don't want it to get smooshed or to collapse. Then you do have to wait 1 day or 24 hours for the clay to dry completely before they're ready to be put on. And as you can see here, these are the horns once they're dry. And you just pull out the bits of paper and you'll have that base inside that is the button. And that keeps it very sturdy and will let you sew it onto your buddy without worrying too much about it. And the other thing you can do with any of these horns is you could coat them in clear nail polish, and that will give them a shiny look and give them an extra coating of protection on the horns themselves. But they can also just go on right away like this. And if you're sewing them on, you can just use the thread and needle and sew them through the buttonholes, or through that little hole there that we've made for this particular version of horns. And you can try all sorts of things with the air dry clay. You should have enough to do some experiments and to try a couple different versions and see how it'll work. And that's how you can make a pair of horns for your buddy. Thank you all so much for reading and making with us today. The summer reading program is generously sponsored by the library trustees and the Friends of the Brookline Public Library. Please check out our other videos in this playlist for more tips and tricks in creating your buddy.